Hi guys, it's still Sunday the 18th of February, now 1 p.m. This article from The Guardian: Co-op bank faces struggle to find owner with ethics and deep pockets. The Cooperative Bank, which for all the guys that don't know, is a UK bank. Small bank, but a UK based bank, which also has many local grocery shops and is also in the funeral business, which quite likely will be burying itself pretty soon. So what's going on? This was published on the 18th, yesterday. Barely 7 weeks have passed since Liam Coleman took charge of the Cooperative Bank, but last week hoisted a for sale sign. The Co-op Bank has racked up losses of 2.1 billion since 2011 and has been told to raise more capital by the Bank of England. But that is where the problems start. A new owner may not have the same ethical approach to business, but the bank has 4 million customers and 85% of them, according to the Co-op's own research, joined the bank precisely because of its ethical stance. The Co-op Bank's ethical credentials, which include not doing business with companies that breach human rights or involve in animal testing, and are a bedrock and central strand to many of the relationships we have with our retail customers, said Coleman. In 2013, a £1.5 billion hole in the bank's finances was uncovered. Until then, owned by the Cooperative Group, the UK's biggest mutual, which runs grocery chains and funeral parlours. It was forced to cede control to hedge funds and hand over 80% of the bank to survive. A vivid 152-page account into what went wrong concluded it was brought down by poor management, bad lending and flawed culture, and an over-ambitious drive for growth. And we have to ask ourselves, guys, where have we heard this before? Its former chief executive, Barry Tootle, has been banned from ever holding a senior position in banking again, and former chairman Paul Flowers was fined for possessing cocaine, crystal meth and ketamine, and subsequently dismissed as a minister by the Methodist Church. So yet there's more ties to a bank with drug connections, whether it be personal amounts or whether this might have actually been more sinister and been large quantities of narcotics dealings, because we all know that banks have cross-settlement platforms in narcotics. Coleman, who joined after spells at RBS and Nationwide and was part of the 2013 turnaround team, states it has pared back riskier lending and its assets have been scaled down from £43 billion to £28 billion. A turnaround program has led to the workforce being more than halved to 4,000, and nearly 200 branches have been shut down, leaving only 105. And that's something I obviously cover as well on this channel, guys. If you go back and see some of the previous videos, you'll see how I document all about Lloyds Bank and all the other banking chains in the UK currently scaling down and removing large quantities of jobs and large amounts of high street banks for customers to actually use. This is all pre-preparation for what is coming. There is no way banks can sustain the vast sums of debts and derivative liabilities that are on their books by simply closing down offices and laying off a few thousand jobs, because a few thousand jobs do not tally anywhere close to the liabilities that still remain. It goes on to say, current account holders have only slipped from 1.5 million to 1.4 million, but the number of mortgage customers has increased to 225,000 from 175,000. So that's 50,000 new mortgages from 2013, which will have been repackaged and sold off into the derivative bubble of oblivion somewhere in the European Union, leaving the co-op with a nice little commission fee on top. Nonetheless, in a week when Royal Bank of Scotland will reveal it has now racked up £55 billion of losses since its 2008 bailout. The losses at the Co-op may appear comparatively small, but in the context of the once mutually owned bank, they are enormous. More than double the profits made since the start of the millennium. But the turnaround plan has been knocked off course by the damage done by low interest rates. Hence the need for more cash. And that's something these banks always do. They put themselves into such a critical financial position. We need more cash. Otherwise, these poor millions of people and thousands of people that have mortgages through us are going to be affected. So they're being talks to the Bank of England, who they're obviously in cahoots with anyway, because they're all part of the same structure, the same organised crime syndicate, which is going to obviously require, at the mildest form, a bail-in of some degree. But this is an unsustainable cycle. Goes on to say, Coleman won't say how much cash the bank needs to find, but analysts at JP Morgan reckon it is about £550 million. They are sceptical that a takeover is possible and think bondholders, as was the case in 2013, may eventually have to pay up to cover the shortfall. There are very few options left, they said. We think bondholders may have to participate in the recapitalisation of the troubled lender. Thomas Kinmuth, fixed income analyst at ABN AMRO, thinks the bank is unlikely to be taken over in its entirety. It is expensive to take over such a small bank, he said. There is very little value in taking over the infrastructure and staff. It is more likely, he says, that the current accounts and mortgage book will be sold off separately. So this is where you're going to see a big divide occurring. And bear in mind, if it's 1.5 million accounts, it still stands for quite likely 2% of the UK. And the other aspect is, and the people who are inside of this cooperative bank as account holders are there because of the, quote, ethical, which from my understanding of this article is anything but ethical, based upon CEOs being neck deep in drugs, obviously black holes of budgets, which leads to just another unethical bank. So all those foolish people thinking, this bank must be different to the other bank because they're ethical, are yet again blinded by their ignorance to the fact. Sure, they may not lend fiat cash to a company wanting to do animal testing or that breaches human rights, but I tell you categorically, they will have no qualms come the time of bail-ins for its customers. And those customers will get the rough end of feeling the true unethical practices that every single bank will do. But they'll still be blinded, saying, no, this bank's different. They have ethical standards. There was also another article about the Co-op Bank. It was describing how they are now in talks regarding the pensions and the pension systems that people have paid into for decades. And it reminds me of the BHS video that I did regarding, I forget his full name, but Green, the former owner of British Home Stores, Sir something Green, Philip Green, I think it was, and how there was a payment made out in a bonus format to his wife for something in the region of 300 or 400 million. And you can see that in the video I've just linked. Nonetheless, the pension pot, come time of similar situations to the cooperative bank, was raided, and millions and hundreds of millions of pounds were stolen from the pension pot and siphoned out to the billionaires. And that is something I see probably occurring here with the cooperative, which will be more than interesting if that actually does develop in the next couple of months and millions of pension funds have mysteriously gone missing, much like they've stated already that there's £1.5 billion missing, but they don't actually state which department it is missing from. Maybe it is the pension area. If that's the case, there's going to be thousands and thousands of workers with no pension. I'll leave that for you guys to chew over.